can tell by the thumbnail, I might be a little bit spicy tonight, and I'm probably going to be spicy again tomorrow morning. You don't get that a whole lot from me. You get the realistic side of me, which is fine. But that's why I'm a little spiced up tonight, because some things that were said at this owners meeting, they didn't sit well with me at all. And maybe I'm reading into it too much, but you guys know that's just how I do. So let's welcome everybody into the chat tonight. Appreciate you guys joining me here Wednesday night, March 27th, 2024. Rocked On Detroit Lions Off the Cuff podcast. Tracy, moderation tonight. Appreciate it. Mile marker 301, El Torrey. I remember Tobin wrote, Big Play J. That's a new name. Welcome in, Big Play J. Bruce Morton's in the house. Atlanta Brandon. All of Atlanta Brandon. He's got it all. All right. Carlos Laralde. D. Sheldon Browning. It's a new name. Detroit Fan Man. I think you've been in before. Mike P in the house. Todd C. Chef Talks Lions. By way of Australia, the Down Under. And so you Braylon Dennis, Mr. Consistent. Jarrett Settlers, another new name. Welcome in tonight. And anybody else that I missed, it is not by choice. Hey, we've got Warren King in the house. And yes, we resigned Mr. Nate Trashfield, but not Reynolds. Yeah. I haven't seen Nate Sudfield's contract yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and guess that it's probably vet minimum for his age. More than likely. He was not supposed to be re-signed. Obviously, the Lions have been pretty successful with the rule changes the last 2 seasons. They got the triple quarterback rule added last year, and this year, the challenge rule. So they're doing good. Sean Rounds, what's happening, man? How are you? St. Augustine, Florida. Hey, you got an extra room, Sean? Because I could really use some sun right now. I'm about ready to jump in the truck and head south. My son graduates down in Naples, Florida. And so I'll be down there anyway here in, 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. But I'll be down there for sure, Naples area. So anyway, look, tonight we're going to be talking about a few topics. I mean, I got a ton of topics, but I'm going to start with this one. As you see with the thumbnail, I'm mocking Brad Holmes a little bit. I gave a little bit of, a shout out to 4 guys. I mean, it was tough to decide on who to put on that thumbnail. I made that little mock up there. So I heard A-team. That's all I heard out of Brad Holmes' mouth. Plan A, I heard A-team. Don't ask me why. I just did. That's all I heard. Plan A, A-team, didn't need a B. And for some reason, I remembered that picture of the A-team, so I went and hunted it down. And we got it. So there's the meanings behind it is simple, man. If you don't require plan B, you don't plan for plan B. According to Brad Holmes, he didn't need plan B. In probably more ways than one, but I won't go down that road. But at any rate, plan A worked. He said he got everybody that he wanted to get. And in matter of fact, if the computer is going to behave tonight, if everything's nice and smooth, maybe what I'll do is we'll pull in his audio and take a listen, because I started creating a bunch of videos. I pumped out like 6 of them, and then I didn't release them all, which I probably should have. But let me grab his audio real quick. There's a lot of things in here to discuss, and yes, I saw that too. Braylon Dennis, our former trainer, Dean, got the Award of Excellence. I thought that was pretty cool. Jarrett Settler says they believe in the draft. They do. Absolutely. J-Rod, I don't know what's going on, man. Definitely not operator error. Something's not right. Every time I start to stream now, at night, I have problems. During the day, I don't seem to have problems. I don't understand what's going on. I mean, I've had Spectrum out here. They've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in my HOA to put new lines in, new towers, or new, nodes, all kinds of stuff, all the way back, to the main distribution plants. They've had done a ton of work, and we still get problems. So, the Goff and the St. Brown deals. So it's not clear. I've heard people making statements that it's going to get done this summer. The information that I let you guys in on a couple weeks ago was it's going to get done after the draft. It's not going to get done before the draft. And I think that there's probably a few reasons as to why they do this. And if I were to take a guess, without knowing exactly what's going through Brad Holmes' mind, it would be this. You want to get through the draft and figure out who you're going to land before you ultimately go ahead and extend some players. Now, could you extend and trade? You could. Could you extend and play for a season and trade the next year? Absolutely. But I'm a firm believer that since Brad Holmes is a BPA all-day guy in the draft, that he is going to wait and see approach on what happens in this draft. If he gets a top-tier wide receiver, that might change things. I mean, he can get a top-tier wide receiver if he wants to move up. But if he really thinks that he got a game changer, that could change things. That'll put the pressure on St. Brown. There's been talk. Who was it? Dave Burkett brought it out to light. I think Derek reported on it that Dave Burkett back last November said that St. Brown would sit, wouldn't play without a new contract. And so I was, without actually going and researching that information like I did the other day, I thought that came from St. Brown, and it didn't, at least the way that I read it through Burkett's article. That was Burkett saying that. He was saying, I would, if I was St. Brown, not play without a new deal. Like, he's putting that information out there. Like, I mean, are you a Lions supporter, or are you just writing to write? Because if you're a Lions supporter, I wouldn't put those thoughts out there. I mean, I guess it depends on how much you value your position, or, how do you value the work that you do? Are you just doing a job? Are you a Lions fan? It's hard to separate. Trust me, I battle with it all the time. But I wouldn't put that information out there. I wouldn't speculate like that. I wouldn't think that St. Brown would just sit because he had, didn't have a new contract. Heck, he could have done that this year. He had such a phenomenal year last year. He could have done it this year, but he didn't. Let's just say that there's a possibility that he was going to. And now if the Lions bring in this top tier, wide receiver through the draft, it's probably going to change things. He's probably going to be like, well, I can't sit now, because if I let this rook come up and take all my snaps and he starts to blow up, well, shoot, then I'm kind of out of it. I shot my load and it backfired. Oh, I'm sure there's like 300,000 to 400,000 podcasts going on right now, J-Rod. There's a ton. There's like 130 million YouTube channels. It's nuts. Jayster, what's happening? See you in there. Dan Perry. It was all messed up in Oakland County again today too, or Oakland County. Gotcha. Shadow Viper, welcome in. Joseph Ostin's in the house. YouTube chat guy calls Lions bums. What's that? I don't know what that is. J-Rod, you got freedom to speak all the time, man. Anybody has the freedom to speak here. It just, you can't expect people not to jump on you a little bit. But that's all right. Every one of us has opinions, and it's all right to have an opinion. We expect people to treat people with respect. That's all, That's all we do here. Derek, I see. I didn't see Hecky No as a poll option. That's funny. Looks like Derek is joining in the fun a little bit tonight. All right. All right. So anyway, like I was saying, I wouldn't expect St. Brown to sit out. I wouldn't, but I think that if the Lions bring in a receiver, I think that slims that margin even further. So did Brad Holmes get his best free agency? I mean, statistically on paper, probably. He's got two really good corners that played 75% of the time. For that reason, I would say no, but they're pretty good corners, pretty solid. DJ Reader, top 10 defensive tackle in the league when healthy. He alone, in my opinion, saved free agency for Brad Holmes. DJ Reader saved free agency. I just have a hard time believing that DJ Reader was the guy, like the number one choice the entire time. Like he was plan A. I don't believe it. And I don't believe that Amik and Carlton Davis were both plan A. And the reason why is simple. He didn't know that he was going to need two corners that could start. He did not know that unless they had plans to do something with Cam, whether it was trade, cut, relegate to a, CB3, make him fight it out in camp. Who knows? So unless they had plans to relegate Cam Sutton to a different position, Brad Holmes had no idea that he needed two corners. And even he himself said that they didn't think that they were going to be able to get the deal done with Carlton Davis. And they thought that they were going to lose Amik Robertson when they did bring in Carlton Davis. So none of that made any sense to me. And for that reason, I don't believe that he got all of his A's. And I don't believe that Josh Reynolds was part of the A plan. You brought in Traquan Smith knowing that either DPJ or Josh Reynolds would get re-signed. Whoever signed first, great. And Traquan is going to fight for a spot on this team. And you were not going to pay Josh Reynolds what you paid him last year. And even according to the Detroit Free Press here, actually it was fan-sided. I'm sorry. They said, according to the Detroit Free Press, that the Lions made a below-market contract offer at the start of free agency and maintained minimal contact with Reynolds' camp in recent weeks. Minimal. Dan Campbell said that they were in contact with Reynolds' camp just on the 26th of March. And so did Brad Holmes. He said that he was a top tier, part of the plan A in getting him back during free agency. If he was someone that you wanted on this team, you could have had it done. Now, unless we find out that the Lions offered $5 million and he signed for, 2 years at $14 million, well, there's a big difference. He's getting an extra year on a contract. If you didn't offer him 2 years, if you only offered him a year deal, well, then that's not plan A. He's not very important to you. I don't think that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell read the headlines. I don't think that they watch our podcast. I don't think that they give a rat's ass what we say or how the fans, jumped in on Josh Reynolds for dropping a couple of balls, ill-timed fate, if you want to call it that. But he was Mr. Consistent for the last 3 seasons. I mean, the guy was always consistent, always there, always doing his job, had a couple of drops. I don't believe that it cost us the game in the NFC title game. I don't, but that's what people are going to remember. That's the last memory that they have about Josh Reynolds is him dropping a ball. And again, I'm not saying that, they watch these comments and listen to all the riffraff. Who knows though? Maybe they do. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe they would have known that man, if we bring in Josh Reynolds, who's been getting crucified all offseason by all the fans, that it's going to create, even more animosity and a bigger problem with bringing him back. And for that reason, they brought in Traquan Smith, and it was, we're going to lowball you, and whoever signs first, DPJ or Josh Reynolds, get it done. Again, I'm speculating here. Thomas Rotundi, to your message there, not worth $14 million. I think that he is, just because of his age and how well he's produced. And I guess when you look around the league, I think it's fair. I don't think that the Lions have $14 million to spend on, what is a third wide receiver, potentially a fourth now on this team, just because of, the emergence of Sam Laporta, who is just a giant wide receiver, and what we're expecting to be Jameson Williams' breakout season at number 2. And, you got Amon Ra at number 1. So he was easily the fourth option on this team, or what should be the fourth option. And now with DPJ, man, if he can just return to 2022's form, he'll exceed what Josh Reynolds did by far. So I would say he's worth it, but just not going to work out, for the Lions for that kind of money. But I think he's worth it. D. Sheldon Browning says, I thought we were talking A-team. That would be an A-team trade for an A-team player. Dreaming. Yeah, I hear you there, Sean. Reynolds wanted a bigger role other than wide receiver 3. Now he's a number 2 in Denver. He's got a nice little shot in Denver. The only problem is, who's going to throw him the ball? What is Denver to do right now? Interesting situation over there for him. The only thing that I think that they've got going for him is I do believe that Denver's going to try to snake a quarterback in this draft. And if they do, having a player like Josh Reynolds around would really help a young quarterback develop, help somebody see the field a little bit easier. Look, though, Josh, he, all throughout 2023 was praised, according to this article, praised for his ability to extend the chains. He made big catches. He was a reliable target for Jared Goff, like I said, all the time. Just the other day, Dan Campbell said that they were in contact with J. Ray, and even told reporters that this week. I don't think it's a secret that we think about him as far as the type of player he is, the unselfishness, the dirty work, the versatility. So look, I love J. Ray, and that doesn't mean something won't get done. Yeah, that did not make me feel confident that they were really working on anything with Reynolds. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Braylon. Like Denver's a hot mess. They have no money for the next couple of years because of that deal with Russell. Patrick Surtain, I've heard his name flying around a little bit. I haven't heard anything about trades. Matter of fact, last year Denver said they were never even thinking about trading Patrick Surtain during the trade deadline, that it was not an option. And given the fact, of where they are right now, with their cap situation, I don't think that they have a choice but to keep Patrick Surtain around, because he's probably like the best thing they have on the team. And he's cheap, I think, for one more year. So Sean Rounds, you bring up a good point, and I think I'm going to go to that next. So let's talk about this whole L'Jarius Sneed thing, and I guess what happened with Carlton Davis. And I know I brought it up a little bit, but if we are talking A team here, A team, no plan B, is Carlton Davis an A team guy? He misses 23% of the games that he's been available to play. 23%. So if I were to do the math on that, hold on here. 23%. So we'll go 17 games. That means that he should play at least 13 games this season. You guys are gonna poo-poo in your pants when I tell you this. If he missed 23% of the games this year, that's like paying him $19 million a season. Because effectively, that $14.5 million, which I understood, he restructured, but he's still getting paid that money. That $14.5 million divided by 13 games is a little over $1 million a game. And at the end of the day, it would be about $18.97 million when you go game for game cost. How much did you get paid? How many games did you play? So if he plays at his league average, it's like paying him $19 million this year. Furthermore, on the subject, the Lions gave up a 2024 third round pick. 2024. L'Jarius Sneed was traded for what? A 2025 third and a 2026 flop or a 7th round flop? Even if those were switched around, 2026 third and a 2025, 7th round swap, I would have done that all day and 10 times on Sunday. All day. And paid the guy $19 million a year. $20 million signing bonus. I haven't looked at, let me look it up now, what his cap hit is going to be this year. But it's probably not more than $10 million. So if we're talking A team, and we're going money for money here, because you cannot tell me, you could never tell me the L'Jarius Sneed is not as good as Carlton Davis. You will never be able to sell me on that. I do not see an updated contract in Spotrac. And I do not see an updated contract in Over the Cap. Come on, guys, get on it. So let me just find it another way. So he was paid 4 years, $76.4 million, which is basically $19 million a year, $55 million guaranteed, $20 million signing bonus. So let's just say it was a five-year deal with one void year. You're paying the guy $15.2 million a year on average as a max deal. 15.4. You're paying Carlton Davis $14.5. So the difference of $700,000 is what it would have been. $55 million guaranteed. Again, over 5 years, you're talking $11 million a year that's guaranteed to the guy. And a $20 million signing bonus, well, if you spread that out over 5 years, that's only $4 million a year. So realistically, you could have had a cap hit this year of less than $5 million. Because you got to put the 4 on there no matter what for the signing bonus. If it was over 5 years. And you got to include at least, I think, the vet minimum. So $5 million is what you could have had L'Jarius Sneed in the house for. He could have went out and had an amazing season for you this year. And then you could have turned around and traded him next year. If you really wanted to. If you didn't want to keep him around for 4 years, but you wanted to have an opportunity to go and win a ship this year, you could have pretty much paid him the same amount of money that you're paying Carlton. Actually, you would have saved about $10 million this year on the cap. Now I have to go and look at, Carlton's restructure, but I think they only saved $5 million. So I guess let me walk that back. If they're paying him $10 million this year, then you could have saved another $5 million in cap space this year. had L'Jarius Sneed on the roster for $5 million, given up less draft capital further down the road, spent a third pick on another corner this year, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. We're talking about L'Jarius Sneed, Bucky. It's just, it just blows me away. So, again, if it were me, I would have brought him in, and if I would have been like, okay, I'm bringing in corners, I want to address it during the draft. That's my goal. But then you heard Brad turn around and see, this is what got me fired up, because then you heard Brad turn around and say, corner was not a need anymore. It's what he just said on the 26th. Now I get it. It's smokescreen season. But what's the one thing? What is the one thing that Brad Holmes has never done, really? I mean, I really can't pinpoint anything that he's really lied about or not told us. So we all think that he's full of smokescreens. I don't think that he is. He's told us, I'm going to address this in the draft. That's what he does. He tells us, I'm not going to spend big in free agency. He doesn't. I am going to get second tier guys and build my depth and build my roster. Through the draft, you know, I'll grab guys that are going to stick around for a long time. That's exactly what he's done. He's never lied to us from that sense. Trade deadline last year. I will not bring anybody in unless they're a perfect fit to this team. I do not want to screw up the chemistry in this locker room. He didn't do anything. DPJ didn't play. Didn't play much. Yep. And then he also said that you can never have enough corners. He said that every year. I've said that every year. We know that you can't not have enough corners. I mean, you need to have at least 10, 12, 14, 16 DBs just in camp. But 10 or 12 will make the roster between safety and corner. But what he said is corners are not a need. So you don't get Sneed. Okay, cool. Bring in Carlton and Amik. You got one of them for 1 year, another one for 2 years. Oh, wait. He was asked about extending Amik. So again, remember, he said he got his A team. So why aren't you extending Amik to reduce the cap hit, lengthen out his contract, work out a nice little deal right now? And his words were, yeah, I don't feel there's any need to rush that right now. But wait, this is your A team, Brad. This is the guy you wanted. The only guy you wanted, you said. He said every guy that they wanted, they got but one, and that was Josh Reynolds. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Etonimus, what am I reaching on, bro? What am I reaching on? What am I I don't know what I'm reaching for. And U of M dad. So a plan A of second tier guys. Exactly. Now I expected second tier guys. I mean, you guys heard me say that we were going to get second tier guys in free agency. Brad Holmes did say that free agency is the time to plug some holes. You get your needs, but you will not get any needs in the draft. If you start drafting for needs, you are going to miss on high quality football players, is what he said. Something similar to that. And that I agree with. I don't think that you need to spend a boatload of money. We went through it the other night. I went through every single team's expenses this last year and where they spent money. And if they spent a boatload of money on the defensive line, how it did not equate to being number one in sacks or even in the top 5 or even in the top 10 in most cases. Same thing. If you spent a boatload of money in corners, didn't always translate to being the best cornerback room, but there was a couple of teams that were. So I think that, yeah, if this is Shadow Viper, second tier and injury prone, if that's what Brad Holmes considers plan A is A team, then I got more questions. I do trust Brad. You guys know that. I'm all for Brad. I think he's doing a phenomenal job, but that doesn't mean that I cannot be realistic. It doesn't mean that I can't ask the tough questions. It doesn't mean that I can't do the research and find some questions to ask. It's what I'm good at doing. It's what I'm going to do. That's why a lot of people come here on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays and Sundays and Saturdays. Because we do the work. We put the work in. Now, tomorrow morning, it may not be as spicy. We'll see. So King SJ says, I'm not sure on the A-team stuff for Brad. I could see part of it as being his A-team and part of it not. I don't see Brad admitting something like that. Yeah, I don't. I don't either. I don't think that he would ever admit that he missed on something. Here's the question that we'll answer this time next year or a month ago next year. So sometime, in February, he got his A-team. Let's say he has a pretty good draft. What if the Lions don't make it back to the playoffs this year? And a big reason of it was because DJ Reader was hurt coming in, didn't play but half the season. Carlton Davis has a history, didn't play that well, maybe played the whole season. Emmanuel Mosley turned out to be a nobody coming back from 2 ACLs. What if that happens? What is Brad going to say next year? Oh, had the right guys. Those are the right guys for this team. They just didn't work out. I don't know what he's going to say. But it could be something like that. I don't know. We got to trust the plan. We got to trust the process. We got to build through the draft. We've got our guys here. We know we do. Could say something like that. He said it before. The league is hard. That I'll give him. It's an extremely difficult league to come back and win. It's very difficult to go to the playoffs once, let alone every year. And it's hard to get back. I'm all wrapped up on this A-team. Because this was clearly not the A-team. Now, I'm not all for spending, the entire checkbook on 2 or 3 players. We've done that before. Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley, Matt Stafford, Kelvin Johnson crippled this team. We had 4 contracts that was like 75% of the entire cap. 4 players. You still had, 47 other players to pay in the top 51, and you had 4 players making 75% of the money. So that I do appreciate big time. Oh, no, Mike P, no, never. See, and I keep forgetting about Davenport because he didn't even play really last year. I mean, the games that he got in, he really didn't do much. He just wasn't effective. And look, I'm not saying that the whole season's a loss or something like that. I'm just being realistic here for a minute. I listened to what he had to say. And we can listen to it. You guys tell me. I got it queued up. We can listen to it. You tell me. You tell me what you think. I guess my biggest question is, did everybody listen to this? Did everybody watch it? Because that's where it comes from. Yesterday, or was it at 3:00 this morning? I can't remember. It was kind of blended. I was up at 3 today. So I was filling out a questionnaire for, there was some poll that was done, and they reached out and they wanted some statements and some background history and Why I do the channel and why it started and where it started. And, the one thing that I always go to is 23 years of being a loyal member. My father keeping everything going, my grandfather getting everything started. There's 60 plus years of lion blood in my family, 60 plus years of season tickets flowing through this family. Family from the area, suburbs of Detroit. Grandfather went to, Pontiac High School. So it's in me, right? Been there. Going to my first game at 4 years old, meeting Gary Danielson. There's a lot of answers that I was given. And one of the most important things that I said was this fan base, the community that's here, how important it is, how we are always there to either pick each other up, cheer for the team, be there for the team. Yeah, it does get toxic or negative at times because some people don't read, they don't educate themselves. They just take things at face value. We can all disagree on anything and everything. But the one thing you shouldn't do is attack people over it. Like, that's pointless. It just makes you look like a very shallow individual. So disagree with, the substance of the conversation, the point, the argument. Don't attack the person. And you'll be much better in the long run, I promise, because it's not the individual that you're disagreeing with that's going to have the issue. It's going to be you. So anyway, let me bring this in with Brad Holmes here. Well, let's just watch a little bit of it. Let's listen to what he had to say.
And kind of just, communicate with.
Oh, great. Now we got spinning wheels. So I don't know if any or all of you guys have watched all of this stuff, or if you take the time to. But again, that's another reason why we do the things that we do. I'm going to have to let this thing queue up. I don't know what's going on. I think I have too many things open. But this is why a lot of us do what we do, because we do take the time and put the work in and come up with the opinions. You don't have to agree with them. I am never going to give you a bunch of fluff. I like to talk about the hard things. I like to talk about the fun things. Some days are easier than others. And some days technology works, like not right now. I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on here. I wonder if my graphics card is broken or something. I don't know. I got terabit internet and nothing works half the time. So, and to some of your guys' points, like Jster, 52 years fan. It's when you've been there, right? I've never been SOL. That's the one thing I've never been. Yeah, I mean, you get down, during the thick of it. You go through a bad rough patch. The 0-16, I think, really got to us for a few years because we were the brunt of every single joke for years. But you know who still showed up the next year and bought another jersey and went to the opening game? I did. And the year after, and the year after, and the year after, and the 10 years before that. So I don't know who this streams only is. And obviously they've only been in here like 3 times. So they've had enough warnings. See you, dude. Yeah. Braylon, we got your back, buddy. This stream's only dude's gone. Oh, I type in caps all the time too. I get like stuck in editing mode and I start replying. Kyle Long from the Green Light podcast replied to one of my messages the other day. He's like, "Why are you typing in all caps, dude?" I'm like, I'm stuck in it. I'm editing and then my keyboard wouldn't switch. So I had to change keyboards. It was a whole thing. Like I was chatting with Kyle Long. I thought that was funny. I thought it was hilarious. We were talking about Delaney Walker's injury and the whole debacle with this new hip drop, whatever the hip drop ban. I still can't get this thing to load up. So I'm just going to exit out of it. And we'll move on for a minute. We'll come back to it. Maybe. We'll see. We're trying to get rid of the spiciness. We gotta let it tame down a little bit. That's all good, Tracy. I don't know who Streams Only is. I've seen him pop in a couple of times, but if they're going to be disrespectful to people, then we don't need that here. There's other channels for that. Okay, so we've gone over the Lions taking the best player no matter what. That's Brad Holmes' position in this draft. It has been in every draft. The needs train, like I said, can be filled in free agency. That's what Brad, pretty much discussed in his statements to the media at the owners' meeting. He does not view corner as a position of need right now. And again, you can verify all of that through everything that he said. He does not view corner as a need right now. Yes, it's smokescreen season. I understand. But I also understand that Brad Holmes is pretty darn honest with us about what he intends to do. And he stands up every time on that podium and points it out. I told you this is what I was going to do, and I did. I told you this is what I was going to do, and I did. You didn't like who I took, and he just made the game-winning interception. And you didn't like this person. And I mean, he saved his receipts and he cashed them all in this year. And he had a right to. And that's the one thing that I will never, hold against Brad Holmes is, man, I mean, he just totally turned around this team in less than 3 seasons. And we are now entering a phase that should trajectory only go up, right? I mean, that the line is going darn near straight up. So I'm excited about that, like extremely excited about that. And I feel positive. And like I said, I'm not an SOL guy. I'm not, always harping on Brad. I mean, you guys see the videos I put out. I'm always talking highly of Brad Holmes, but you best believe that when I see some things that just don't sit right, we'll talk about it. So he does also say that he feels that Mosley will have an easier time getting back after a second ACL because he went through the first one, and says that he believes that Mosley is still on track. Whatever track is, I don't know. Is that week 1, week 5, week 8? I don't know what track he's talking about. I don't know if they're going to play that a little differently this year and play this a little bit slower with Mosley to make sure that he can come back and stay on the field this time. Oh, Brian, I 1,000% agree with you, man. They definitely have a plan. Jayster, I don't know why it wouldn't let you subscribe. Are you talking about to this channel? Should let you subscribe. We don't have any restrictions on who can or can't subscribe. So Troy Thibodeau says Brad has not drafted best player available. Look at the last 2 drafts. It wasn't best player. It's his player. That's a good point. It's best player on his board that's available. So yes, you are correct. U of M Dad says, I'm still tickled about picking no cornerback at the trade deadline last season. Trying to keep believing in Holmes. Bleed Lions blood. The way these guys are recovering now, Mosley could be back week 1. I mean, he could be. I mean, he went down the same exact week as the first injury. So he was back a couple of weeks before the season even started, but he had that cleanup procedure, remember? And that put him down like another 3 or 4 weeks. And that's why he missed the start of the season. And they were even hopeful that he was still going to go week 1, but didn't happen. So yeah, he could be ready to go by week 1. I mean, realistically, he could. That would be roughly 11 months of rehab. It's just, how comfortable is he going to be when he's only been practicing for a month, running around for a month? I do believe, too, that Gibbs was the best running back in the draft last year, without a doubt. You know, the one thing that Brad Holmes also mentioned in this press conference or media availability is he went to Alabama's pro day. He didn't even go to Michigan. He didn't go to Michigan's pro day with 18 players in the draft. Didn't go. Now, he made a point, and he said that he doesn't need to always see guys working out to determine, you know, how they're going to be. But he wanted to go to Alabama and make sure that he got to see some of the guys that he likes. So let's think about it. Who's at Alabama this year? You know, what do we need for needs? You know, what guys do we need that could be best player available when you know they're up? You got Kool-Aid. Who else do you have? Braswell, Turner, Terry and Arnold. I think those are the four guys that he's probably looking at, without a doubt. So if we can just land one of them, and then that's the big difference. Like, what type of players did our previous regimes typically go after? Yeah, so the last regime went heavy into free agency, spent a ton of money in free agency, put us in cap purgatory, and then in the draft, they stayed as far away from the SEC as possible. I think we brought in one guy, Ashawn Robinson. I think he was from Alabama, right? And I can't imagine, or I can't think of any other players that we really brought in from the SEC. And Brad Holmes loves the SEC. He loves fast players, and you typically get faster, bigger players down south. You do. They're able to play more often, outside more often, better weather, all around better athletes, in my opinion. Now, offensive line up north, more often than not. You want those cold, you know, frigid, rigid guys, you know, Iowa, Michigan State every once in a while, Ohio State, Clemson, even though Clemson's not as far north, but Syracuse, Illinois. I mean, a lot of the good to really good offensive linemen, they're coming out of the north, or at least the northern schools. So we went over the fact that Holmes doesn't view corner as a spot of need. I think he's full of bull here. I really do. I think he's still targeting a corner. That might be the only statement that I don't believe in. So maybe either he doesn't believe it's a need in free agency, and I think that's the defining factor, right? That's the weeds that we have to look through, or the trees that we have to look through, like someone said. Is Wisconsin? There's another one. When Brad says need, he means free agency. I think that's the parity that we have now. Is he believes that when you add players to this team for needs purposes, you're plugging holes on the roster. It's through need. It's through free agency. And it's not going to be these top tier guys. It's going to be guys that he feels, you know, fits the team through and through, guys that can come in and play at a high level. You know, for instance, Zeitler, Kevin Zeitler. You know, we had a conversation about a week and a half ago, and we knew that Zeitler was coming in. What did I say? I said that Zeitler was going to be the one that did what? Continue to play right tackle. They confirmed that. I think it was one of the two. It was either Brad or Dan that said that Zeitler's going to be a perfect fill-in between Ragnow and Panay. So that keeps him at right tackle. That means that Graham Glasgow is headed over to the left side. And that's exactly what I thought that would happen, because Graham has enough positional versatility and Zeitler's a little bit older and he's been playing right tackle for 10 plus seasons. He's going to stay where he is. That's where his muscle memory belongs. So, part of what I do is analyzing these things and looking at it, what would a coach do? Why would you want to uproot a guy playing right tackle and moving him, or right guard? I'm sorry, I'm not tackle, guard, right guard, and move him to the left side when he hasn't played there in 10 years. Doesn't make any sense. But Graham just played there last year, and center, and right guard. So you can scratch that a little bit out. It was Zeitler playing right guard, not tackle. Kickoff rule. I found this really interesting, that Dan Campbell was fired up about the kickoff rule. And here's what I think is happening. We already saw a little bit of this with Cordero Patterson, who was just picked up. There was no need for him because he was such a specialist. They got rid of him. And now he's back. I can't remember where he went. Someone just picked him up. And it's because of the new kickoff rule. Steelers, that's right. He went to the Steelers. He's 33 years old, though. So the reason why, they did that is because they're expecting to be able to run balls back now. And Dan Campbell said they're already working on it. Him and Phipp have been working on it. How can they take advantage of it? And I think that they're, this is potentially going to change who takes Worthy in this draft. Who doesn't want 4.21 speed when now your guys are stationary until that ball is caught? You have JMO, but are you going to put JMO back there to return kicks? I don't know. There's going to be two guys back there. You need another burner. All you have to do is beat the first line. And I believe the kicker can't go past the 50-yard line. If you can't beat a kicker that's trailing you, laterally from the 50-yard line, we got problems. But all you have to do is pretty much beat the 35-yard line and get past that first line, and you're gone. I think we're going to see quite a few touchdowns this year. Yeah, Bob W., I believe in that too, man. Bob W. says at the beginning of last season, no one expected to be a quarter from the Super Bowl. I think Brad has earned some trust. He definitely has. No, I trust Brad big time. I do. I just question some of the things he says and how it doesn't make sense. Yeah, if you guys haven't watched, I was going to bring it in. Hopefully it'll work. Let me cue it up here. All right, let me see if I can get this to share, because the previous one was not. All right, can you guys see that? Okay, so now what you have here is you have ball on the 30. And then you've got the two teams apart. 5 yards apart. The only difference is you're going to have two guys back on either side of center of the center hash there, the hash marks. So you'll have, I think, a total of four guys kind of behind the main line, or maybe it's only two guys behind the main line and then your kicker. But they're not all going to be up on the line. You're going to have a couple of guys behind them. So just watch how this rolls here, man. This is fun to watch. Come on now, play. Oh boy, here we go again. What is going on? Well, lovely. I guess I can't do it. I don't understand what's going on. I think it could be the streaming service too. I'm going to have to give Streamlabs a holler here. Get this figured out. But anyway, we'll do a video on it instead. We'll pump it out probably by tomorrow. Mike P says, I think Brad Holmes says what he wants us to hear. That way, we all can sit around trying to figure out just what he's really doing. I'm telling you right now, I told Derek this today. It's like every single day there is a small part of me that is trying to figure out what he's doing. That's why I love their press conferences. And that's probably why they don't do a whole lot of press conferences, because sometimes they say too much and they realize that they say too much and people, start to figure them out. Yeah, I don't get this technology stuff. I mean, it's killing me. It's not cool. So Dan Campbell fired up about the kickoff rule. I think that this is going to change, how they draft now, how many players they keep on the roster, because now your needs on special teams is different, right? You may not need a Jason Kabinda anymore because he doesn't have the speed. Now you're going to keep an extra wide receiver or two that has the speed that can also play special teams, that can tackle. Guys that are gunners that can get down the field quickly, because if they get past your gunners, they're gone. Or they have a bigger potential to be gone. So it's going to be interesting. I think that the Lions are definitely going to keep a couple extra wide receivers on this roster. I think the potential is there that they will. I don't think that they're going to keep the bigger, slower guys on this roster that, are now affected by this new special teams rule, because before they might need that 10 or 15 yards to get going. And now you only have 5 yards to get going. And you have to be able to shed these blocks. I mean, you're going to be right up on somebody within 5 yards. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right. So the next thing was they were talking about Branch, how he has some flexibility, obviously, to play safety. It's something that I brought up a couple of weeks ago, that I felt that there was a big need here to secure the safety position, but they also said that they needed some help at safety. So Dan Campbell mentioned that they're still looking for safety help. And when they said that they weren't done in free agency and they still have some of their targets out there, that safety, I believe, is probably the last main target that they're looking to fill a need with. Whether that's a starter over Kirby Joseph or not, I don't know. But I do believe that they're going to want to try to upgrade over Kirby and try to leave Branch alone. Otherwise, they're going to end up grabbing another corner, and Branch will be able to slide back to safety if they really have to. And Amit can play nickel too. Absolutely. He does well in the slot. And I was glad to hear Dan Campbell affirm that, when they brought Amit in, they realized that He's a slot corner who played very well on the outside last year. When he was asked to play on the outside, he manned it. He called him a pit bull or a bulldog, one of the two. That he's just got that fire in him. Amik is a scrapper, and he's got hops for days. I mean, the guy can leap. It also sounded like Dan Campbell is pretty comfortable, and I put this in a video the other day, pretty comfortable with Davenport being the guy opposite of Hutch. Now, this one kind of threw me off a little bit because what have we seen from Davenport? Nothing. He really didn't play last year. And the year before that, I don't think that he had the greatest of seasons. At least his stats didn't show it. So I don't know how they feel like they're comfortable here. We don't know what Mathieu Betts has. I mean, he mentioned him briefly. The Betts is the same way. I mean, the guy is, I can't remember the exact term he used, but that Mathieu Betts, obviously we know from what we've seen on tape, is somebody that is, he's fast. He's got a motor for days. It doesn't quit. And he's vicious. He's vicious with his hands, his hand placement, his first contact. He's got good power. He's got good length. So we have options. We have James Houston, who, we haven't heard much from. We haven't spoken about him at all. And, where does he fit into this equation now? Is he back, playing linebacker again, or are they going to bring him up on the defensive line more? But I think that, at defensive end right now, we're pretty thick. We have like 6 bodies over there, and we can't keep all of them. Between the left and the right side, you've got Aiden and Kaminsky. You've got Houston, Betts, and Davenport. That's 5. You got Josh Pascal that plays inside out. He's really 6. Who am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anybody. I think that's it. So, you got 6 guys that can play the position. That Aiden Hutchinson is going to get about 85 to 90% of the snaps at left, or right. He'll flip flop a little bit. So you need somebody else to fill in, the right side, and then 15% of the other side. Oh, Gouda, that's right. So yeah, that's what worried me is when Dan Campbell said that they're pretty solid with Davenport being the guy opposite of Hutch, somebody that can collapse the pocket. That worries me because, does that mean that we're even going to draft a defensive end? There is a few defensive ends in this draft that make a whole lot of sense. And no, I don't believe that those players are available in the 3rd round. I really don't. Unless something crazy happened, like Adisa Isaac or Darius Robinson, or Chop Robinson even somehow slipped way out after the 2nd round. First of all, that shouldn't happen. Second, if it did, great for us. But I don't see it happening at all. No sleep till Brooklyn, Mike P. No sleep till Brooklyn. Another big move that happened at the owners' meeting, trade deadline, moved back an extra week. I think this was a great decision. They were also working on, they got the trade deadline moved back. They got the challenge rule changed. So now if one of your challenge rule or one of your challenges was successful, you get an automatic 3rd. You don't have to get 2 right to get a 3rd. There will be no 4th. The other one that I thought that they were working on is unlimited returns from IR in the postseason. We know that they banned, the hip swivel drop tackle, whatever you want to call it. The trade deadline is moved back by a week, so it'll be the Tuesday after week 9 as opposed to week 8. And there was something else in here. I was trying to firm up if they changed how many players they could bring back from IR. So here's one of the other questions that I had. One of the biggest problems, well, let's move back to the kickoff rule. One of the biggest problems I had with this whole kickoff rule thing. So let me look at this poll real quick too. So you guys are 50-50. We'll end the poll. Do you believe that Brad Holmes got his A team in free agency? You guys are 50-50. I think that is very telling of this Detroit Lions fan base. Half of us agree, half of us don't agree. So 90 votes. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good poll. So back to the kickoff rule. They were worried about all of these kicks, going through the end zone and, either fair catches or whatever, right? No returns. Well, why not just move the ball back for the kicker? I mean, yeah, you could still move the guys forward. You don't have to go straight XFL with it. You can still move your guys, you put them on the 45 on both sides, put them on the 45. They're 10 yards apart. And just move the ball back to the 15-yard line. And that's where the kicker's got to kick from. I mean, some of these guys got some pretty big boots on them. But if you were to bring it back to the 15-yard line and the guys still can't move until the ball is caught or hits the ground, I think that would have been less invasive than doing what they did with the XFL rule that they're adopting. Joseph, I don't know about squib kicks. I assume that they're going to have any option of kick at their disposal. It just depends on what they're going to do with the ruling that if that kick doesn't land in the targeted zone under the 20-yard line. So they could squib it as long as it doesn't get touched before the 20-yard line. If it gets touched before the 20-yard line, then I would assume that it's a dead ball. And then they get the ball at the 35 is my guess. So I don't know. I don't know. But that's what I was thinking there. Better the hunt is that, man, they mess with stuff too much. Like, just move the kicker back. That's all you had to do. Prevent them from being able to kick it through the end zone. Make it returnable 1,000% of the time by just moving them back. That's all you had to do. Or make them punt the ball like it's rugby or something. Instead of doing kickoffs, do punt offs. Bob W., I wouldn't be surprised if Brad Holmes trades back in this draft. I really wouldn't. Not one bit. I mean, the one thing that I don't want to see removed from the game is the kick. I mean, I think that if you really think about it, though, let me just guess. After a score, and that the score was confirmed, most of you probably got up, went to the bathroom, filled up your plate, grabbed a fresh beverage, knowing that the kickoff was coming up next and it was going to be nothing. And you probably had about 7 minutes from the time that the ball was, in the end zone from a touchdown before your team is getting the ball back, or vice versa, going on defense before you had to be back in your seat. That's what the kickoff did for us over the last many years. It gave us, a few minutes of time to step away from the TV. Now, can't do that because any moment it's going to be a TD. So now you're just going to have to tell your wives or your girlfriends why you got a piss bucket next to you because you can't leave your seat. You can't get up. Sorry. Can't get up. That was a joke, by the way. Don't do that. All right. So one of the other things too, or let me get to Mike P's thing here. It says the reason behind it was the time and the distance between teams take to be on each other before you're at full speed. Also the squib kick, if it doesn't travel far enough, the receiver gets it at the 40. Yeah, they're trying to limit the big impacts with this. So you're going to see a bunch of high level hand fighting going on. Game time catheter. So Field Yates put this out, said starting Christmas Day, we have this week-long football stretch. So we've got the games on Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, 3 days after Christmas, 4 days after Christmas, 2 days before New Year's Eve, New Year's Day is all football. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those days is NFL games. That's complete insanity to me. And here's the biggest question I have. If they, you guys, this is why I get spicy. If they are so worried about player safety, I didn't want to end spicy, but I might have to. If they are so worried about player safety, please tell me this. You want to limit the impacts on the kickoff. Great. I understand it. Makes sense. You want to amp scoring up a little bit. I understand that. I saw the stats that they put out. Okay. Why are you having teams play 2 games in a week? Why are teams barely getting 3-4 days off in between a stretch where they might have even traveled that week? That is the biggest hindrance to player safety. And if I have the time, I want to go and analyze how many players get injured from the time that they've had to play 2 games in 4 days. So they would have to get injured the second game for this to make sense. I want to know those stats. And I bet you it could be eye-opening. There is no reason why they cannot add another bye week. 2 bye weeks. But 1 week, everybody gets the week off. Everybody. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I honestly think that it should be the week of Thanksgiving. So the teams that are playing on Thanksgiving, great. Nobody else plays that week. That gives them a bye week. And then the teams that played on Thanksgiving get the bye week the next week by just not having to play. It all works out. Everybody then resumes, a week later or 10 days later, whatever it is. So you have everybody end, the Sunday before Thanksgiving or the Monday before Thanksgiving, no more games for 10 days. The teams that are playing on Thanksgiving don't play on that Sunday or Monday or the previous Thursday. They play the Sunday before or the Thursday before. Either way, if they're going to be on prime time, probably not. So the Sunday before they play, and then they play on Thanksgiving, and then they don't play again until everybody resumes. It only makes sense. New Jack City. Yeah. So the Lions played 3 games at 11 days this last schedule. And we lost one to Packers because of it. It's BS. It shouldn't. If you care about player safety, that is the one thing that needs to get fixed, in my opinion. Matter of fact, let's put a poll up. I'm interested to know what you guys think. So I put 8 days on it. So should the NFL abolish 2 games played inside 8 days? You know, I think that if they played 2 games inside 10 days, it's not as bad, but I still don't think it's right. I think that they should play a game every 7 days on average or longer. And exactly right, Mike P. No recovery time is the worst thing that can happen to a player. Am I missing the New Jack City thing here? What am I missing? Yeah, if you don't let the guys heal up, you know, they're going to be banged up, bruised up, and then they got to turn around and go out and play again. It's, you know, the time in between, maybe if they had to travel, that they've gone through jet lag. Maybe they didn't get proper amount of sleep. I mean, because sleep is super important for healing. So, yeah, I think that it's absolutely ridiculous that they're still allowing this, and they're worried about the kickoff. They're worried about the hip drop tackle, you know, or whatever you call that darn tackle. And I've looked at a lot of those plays. I mean, they're not that bad. And some of them are going to get flagged now because it might look like something that it isn't. Um, all right. So I think that was just about it. We got trade deadline moving back. You guys are all aware now of the fact of, you know, Cam Sutton being in the building. I'm not going to touch on this one again. I put a video out about it. But I just found that absolutely mind blowing that this guy was in Michigan when all this stuff was going down, you know, whether he knew or not. The fact that he was even in Allen Park was mind blowing enough. So, according to most sources, though, I'm probably going to end on this here. The 3 main positions that the Lions could be targeting at 29 is cornerback, wide receiver, and offensive line. Notice how I didn't say defensive end. And since the beginning of NFL free agency, the Lions have signed, obviously, Amik Robertson, defensive end Marcus Davenport, defensive tackle DJ Reader. They traded for Carlton Davis, and they re-signed Khalil Dorsey, Emmanuel Mosley, Graham Glasgow. Some big, you know, free agent targets were brought back in from their squad in 2023. And with those players added to the 2024 roster, the Lions have opened up some flexibility. They could target, who they believe is the best overall prospect in the opening round of the draft rather than being pigeonholed into targeting, a need, which we know Brad Holmes is not going to do. So I'm still pretty high on the fact that even though a lot of people, a lot of the analysts, a lot of the mock drafts are projecting that the Lions are probably going to end up with a corner or a wide receiver versus an offensive lineman. I'm good with the corner. Depending on the wide receiver, I'd be good with the wide receiver. As long as they end up with a defensive end by pick number 2, and pick number 2 happens to be inside the top 45. So I guess the last question that I'll ask you guys tonight, and Leggett, look, I'm high on Leggett. I've always been high on Leggett. The one thing that kind of dropped him on my board a little bit is he's only 6'1". And I say only like that's, short. I mean, I'm just over 6 foot, but I thought he was 6'3". He was reported as 6'3". That's why the combine is needed to know how tall these guys are. So that's the only reason why he's dropped a little bit on my board. I still think he's going to be a phenomenal athlete. I still think he's going to do great things in the NFL. I really do. I think he's going to be great. But not having that extra couple of inches in this case matters. I like the Rome Odunze, the guy that's 6'3", 215, big body. That's what I'm looking for. The Lions don't have that big body wide receiver. Who else is up? We've got might not be projecting in the first round. Brian Thomas. I think he's another bigger bodied at 6'4", 205. Really like Brian Thomas. More than likely not available at 29. Adonai Mitchell. I'm not as high on Adonai Mitchell, but he's 6'4", 196. I still think he's a heck of an athlete. I still think he's going to have a pretty good career. Ladd McConkey. I mean, he really blew out, a lot of the combine work, but he's only 6 foot. So he's somebody that would come in and take over for, Amon-Ra St. Brown, given a situation breakdown, in Detroit, and Amon-Ra moves on. Not saying that's going to happen, but it could. Then you got Troy Franklin. Look, this guy's 6'3", 187, so he's a little bit on the light side. Got the height, not the weight. So where am I going with this? I'm okay with the Lions grabbing a wide receiver for a couple of reasons. One, the kickoff rules have changed. You're going to need somebody that maybe is not a starter in the offense that you can take a risk on being a return man. And you need somebody with speed. And what better way to do that than either bringing in another corner that has amazing speed or a wide receiver. Those are the only two positions that I feel you're going to, put back there to return. You might have one of each back there. You might have a corner and a wide receiver sitting back there. Yeah, I understand Tyreek Hill's 5'10", but he's also extremely fast and shifty. He's a one of one. I won't compare one of ones to anybody else. I just can't. CeeDee Lamb, 6'2", so CeeDee Lamb is good size. But the Lions, they just don't have a big bodied wide receiver right now. Outside of what's his name? Antoine Green. So this could be a season where Antoine Green has a better showing, obviously, than, he really didn't do anything last year. Is he a breakout player? Probably not. But he's our biggest wide receiver that we have right now. And the Lions wide receiver room has slowly been getting taller. In 2021, we were like the shortest wide receiver room in the NFL, averaging 5'10", 10.5 inches is what the wide receiver room averaged. Last year, I think we averaged right at 5'11.5", maybe 6 foot. I can't remember now. I did all the math, but it wasn't very tall at all. So if we could average north of 6 foot between 5 guys, I think that's great. You've got, the length, the power, the speed. You've got to mix it up with all of it. DPJ is different than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown is different than J-Mo. And J-Mo's different than Antoine Green. And Khalif, it's different than all of them. He's shorter, stockier, more powerful, a little bit more twitchy. J-Mo's got that long end speed. DPJ is a 50-50 guy. I mean, he'll box you out and fight you for it. He's a boundary worker. He's somebody that'll go up and get it. Amon-Ra he's just shifty. And he's on time. That's the biggest thing with Amon-Ra, is he is always on time. Always in the right spot. And he creates separation. And that's hard to do in the NFL. And he creates separation. And I don't know how, because you know who he runs like? He reminds me of Golden Tate. The way that Golden Tate ran and how Golden Tate always seemed to get open. Always. But if you ever watch him run side by side, watch a tape of Golden Tate and then go watch Amon-Ra, you'll be like, holy cow, they're like cut from the same cloth, same guy. They're just in a different jersey and a different helmet. Yeah, DPJ's one of our taller guys. I'd run away from Johnny Wilson right now. I think he's a little too stiff in the hips. I see someone brought up Mike Tyson. We talking about the boxer Mike Tyson. Please tell me you guys don't believe in this fight. Like, what a joke. It's an exhibition fight. I think it's ruining boxing. I really do. I honestly hope that Mike Tyson just twitches in the ring and his brain doesn't function right and he just goes in, to lay Jake out. That's what I really hope happens. Oh, I don't think Paul's wearing headgear, but they labeled it an exhibition. Who's MVS? MVS. MVS. I don't know who MVS is, Nick P. Yeah, Valdez Scantling, but he wanted a bunch of money. Gotcha. Yeah, he wanted a bunch of money, man. I'm not sold on that. So that'll be what I'm going to send you guys off with tonight. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We spoke earlier about L'Jarius Sneed and how it didn't make any sense that you're going to spend $14.5 million, whether you guys agree with it or not. How you spend $14.5 million on Carlton Davis when you could have had L'Jarius Sneed for the same amount of cap this year. And if you really wanted to move off of him next year, I don't think it would have been a problem at all to recoup a 3rd round pick. Even if you gave up your 7th round swap and just said whatever, and you paid the guy $19 million, but then you got your 3rd round pick back the next year, what are you losing? $19 million. Which is, you're only saving $4.5 million by having Carlton Davis. So that's one of the questions I'm going to leave you with too, is Amon-Ra St. Brown really worth the Lions investing $26 million in? If you can't invest in a really solid corner, or defensive end, how can you invest into a wide receiver when wide receivers are one of the easier positions to replace every single season? And when you look at the last many Super Bowl winners, most notably the Chiefs, they are winning with a bunch of no names and or rookies, and possibly one receiver that's halfway decent, and then a good tight end in Kelsey. So that's the question that I'm struggling with, is how do you pay Amon-Ra when you could easily snag 2 or 3 guys in this draft if you really wanted to? Spread the ball out like Jared Goff knows how to do, and you get the same production just from 3 guys or 2 guys versus 1. And that way, if that one guy goes down, you still have 2 or 3 guys you can throw the ball to. That's my biggest worry. And I think that those are the questions that general managers have to answer. And that's what makes their job so difficult, is they literally have to roll the dice and hope that they don't crap out. When they say, I'm going to invest in Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's been great for Detroit. He's everything that this team, wants and fits, from the grit to the work ethic, the attitude, the production. It's all there. All of it. It's all there. So that's why I'm going to invest in him. But I'll be damned if he tears up an ACL or something this season. That's going to be the biggest question then on Brad Holmes. Everyone will fire up over that payment to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I guarantee it. A lot of people that are probably in this right now will say, what were you thinking? Not going out and getting a couple of wide receivers and not paying Brown until after this next season. I guarantee it. The thought will cross your mind. And those are the things we hope never happens. We don't ever want, somebody like, or anybody, period, to get injured like that. They work too hard, to have everything taken away that quickly. But those are the questions that I wrestle with. How do you make it all work? And I think that the answer is you have to grab a good wide receiver every couple years anyway. You have to. You have to grab a good corner every few seasons anyway. You have to grab a good defensive end every few seasons anyway. You just do. You have to roll them in and roll them out. You got to keep that funnel dropping good talent, at each expensive position, whether it's tight end, wide receiver, corner, defensive end. Those are probably the 4 positions that I would target, even running back. 5 positions that I would target that you're going to want to roll in and have on a cycle. I need 2 second-round picks this year and only 1 first-round pick. The next year, I need to somehow get 2 first-round picks and 2 third-round picks. And the next year, I need, a first and 2 seconds and 2 thirds. How am I going to get them so that you can play roster roulette and keep your roster healthy and keep your cap managed? It is a very, very tricky job. One that I'm glad right now that I don't have to deal with, because it's got to be a lot of stress. But I still talk about it. I still have fun with it. I enjoy it. And I think that it's awe-inspiring what these guys do and how they put it all together, and what this team has been able to do the last 3 seasons. It's been a wild ride, and I expect it to get a lot more wild this season. So you guys have been great tonight. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow morning, 8:30 on Rise and Grind at Rockdown Syndicate. It is the last and final show on Rockdown Detroit Lions. It will be at Rockdown Syndicate from there on out. So if you have not subscribed, please do. Let me see if I can just throw it up real quick. There you go, at Rockdown Syndicate. Links should be in the description of this show. And yeah, we got off to a little rocky start tonight with the technology. I might have to go edit the beginning out again. I hate doing that, but I will try to get it fixed as much as I can. I just got to get the new computer ready to roll, and I won't have any more issues. But anyway, appreciate you guys. Please subscribe to Rockdown Syndicate so we can get that channel flowing and get you guys in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if Derek can't go, any more days soon, then I'll probably start expanding. My goal is to get fans on, though. If you guys want to come on the show as guests, that's the goal. We want it to be fan driven. And I'll have other people coming on here pretty soon. I'm going to send out a bunch of emails here in the next couple of days and work on getting some consistency built to the channel. But we want to have fans on and get phone calls rolling. We just got to get the phone call fixed so that Derek can actually hear you guys or respond back and you guys can hear him, one of the two. So, all right, we'll see you guys in the morning for those of you that are going to show up at 8:30. Otherwise, I'll be back on Friday night at 8:30 right here on Rockdown Detroit Lions, presented by Rockdown Podcast Network. Appreciate you guys. Go Detroit Lions. Take care. Bye-bye.